I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to
He's going to break H6 world title.
These two go.
He's going to do it. His first victory.
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Formula SimRacing World Championship as we cross over to the second half of our season. We're at Imola in the middle of Italy, in the hills, up in the hills and the twists and turns of this great racetrack. It's myself, Ewan, and Rodger alongside me visiting this circuit as we have done relatively regularly in the last few years of the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Last time out, Colin Spork was the winner in quite dominant style. 25 seconds was his winning margin in the end over Jurnej Simičić, the eventual champion 1 year ago. But Cam, it's looking increasingly difficult for him to do that right now. Yannick Bock has been the revelation of the season so far, along with Omar Gorgi. They're 1 and 2 in the championship in a very, very dynamic and unexpected championship situation halfway now into the 2024 season.
Yeah, the championship was so close after a couple of rounds, and then now a couple of rounds later, and it's starting to look very good for Yannick Bock, who has had first and second in the last 4 races. He's got himself 19 points clear of Omar Gorgi, but the interesting point is the gaps in behind that as well. Another 14 back to Jake Dennehan, 16 back to Bianca Lilla, and then of course you've got the likes of Simičić, who with his double no score so far this season is really going to be struggling to fight for this championship.
There's the spread of the field. The gap from 1st to 10th is quite large at this stage, but we do have a real look at a sort of contenders list, if you like, for those who really could be up there by the end of the season. Let's wait and see, though. It's worth remembering that Jurnej Simičić has got those 2 zeros to his name, which is, I guess, partly why he's so far down in the standings. But what an interesting season it has been so far, Cam. We started off at Bahrain. We've been all over the world to all sorts of different continents. Australia, Hockenheim, Singapore and Britain, and now we're over at Imola as well for only Italian race of the season, and it marks the sort of start of a new part to this season, I suppose, the second half of this over the summer. And realistically, we don't have that long to go because the rounds get through pretty quickly, and we've been going through them pretty quickly so far since the start of March, and we'll continue to do so until early August. So it's a fast-paced season that will soon be over, unfortunately.
Absolutely. We've only got about 3 months to go, but the races do get a little bit more spread out, so a bit more time potentially for the drivers to get up to speed and try and do something in this championship. But it's hotting up, and as we're now halfway through, we're looking to see the drivers that are going to be standing out. And the big question for me today is, can Yannick Bock continue his way, beating the race clutch cars and holding that gap that he's got? Because if he keeps that coming to 2-3 races left, about 15-20 points is going to be quite hard to overcome.
It absolutely is. He was 10th in practice. Not sure whether we can read too much into that, to be honest with you. Jake Dennehan set the fastest time, but they're just about starting in qualifying now. In fact, that is, I believe, on the left-hand side of the order pretty much that they finished practice in. But as I say, does it realistically matter? I'm not entirely sure. We were discussing this a little bit before we got into qualifying as well here, Cam, speculating about whether this will be the only time we see the soft tyres here today, because last year no one used a single lap of soft compound tyres throughout the entirety of the field. And don't forget, we had even more starters back then. It was 28 that got to the start of this race, 23 got to the end of it, and no one used the soft tyres at all. So I wonder whether that will be repeated this year, whether it's going to be all mediums and hards, whether it will be 2 stops or 3 stops, and what we're going to see today.
We saw the soft tyres being used in both the Pro and the Academy races a bit earlier, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see them come out, but it just depends how you want to use them over the course of the race. The hard tyres will last somewhere in the 30 lap range, the mediums somewhere in the 20 to 25. and then softs around 15 to 20. So you can really do a lot of things on the strategy here with 63 laps. You could do one of each. You could maybe use a couple of the hards but actually push them a little bit more, and then go for a soft somewhere in the middle. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do. And as ever this season, Ewan, we've seen pretty much any strategy can actually win.
Absolutely, yeah. It does more depend on the driver, really, rather than the strategy, which sometimes, in previous years anyway, could win you a race for sure. Jan Crankvist has had a decent season so far, but it has started to fall apart a little bit in the last couple of weeks. A DNF at Singapore was really the thing that got that ball rolling, unfortunately for him. He's now down in 7th. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the championship wider situation here, because we have been talking about this as if it is a really close season, and it is, because it's so unpredictable. We've got two main favourites who I certainly wouldn't have had even in my top 5 at the start of the season if we were to do those predictions. I'm thankful that we didn't now, because I would have got it very wrong. But Yannick Bock has got 19 points over Owen McGorgy here. Now there's 25 for a win, and 18 for third, so that gives you sort of an idea as to what the gap is here. And we're halfway through the season. At what point does that kind of margin begin to become a concern here? Are we already talking about McGorgy needing to gain points in particular races to keep this alive?
And the important point is we see where Grankvist jumps up into 6th place there. And the important factor, I think, is the fact that the last couple of races, Bock has finished 1 place ahead of McGorgy, both times. So that has been very, very important indeed. Because if McGorgy, obviously, if those places swapped, that would only be about 5 points, the gap between them. But it's not. So McGorgy needs to just do that last overtake here and there to try and get ahead of him. And then hopefully he can start trying to work his season out. And someone who we need to see if they can recover a little bit from a bad result last time is Biancalillo as well, and he's doing it up in 4th.
Yeah, as far as my maths goes, if they just reverse those 2 places, they'd be in the reverse positions as well, as far as I can work out. 11 points that's cost McGorgy. I wonder how much he would have been thinking about the end of that Silverstone race as well. We'll get to the times here in a few moments' time, because Owen McGorgy's done very well to start off here, by the way, and both Arnaud Brabham cars are doing very well to start with as well here. But I wonder how he would have been replaying that in his mind, because it did feel like McGorgy had decent speed at Silverstone, but towards the end of some of the stints, he just seemed to fall off with the tyres, and he just seemed to not quite have it anymore towards the end of stints. And I wonder if he'll be feeling that, that really cost me, because in real terms, it cost him 7 points. How much does it cost him, though, psychologically, if you like, with regards to this championship, I wonder?
Yeah, because it's actually true. Last time I forgot, because, you're right, Jake Dennehan obviously finished and got past him, which was possibly something championship-wise they should have reversed. There's loads of people making mistakes here on their lap. Very, very difficult track here at Imola. Bock only P10 so far, and Bradshaw also backing out of his lap. This is pretty crazy, actually. All those second laps, everyone making some mistakes. But yes, for McGorgy, I think you're right. I think the later part of the stint is where he needs to focus on. And especially today, with it being 63 laps, if you divide that by 3, you got an average of 21 laps a stint here. It's quite a lot, and a lot of fast corners to overheat the tyres too.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird, though, because lots of other races this season he wasn't bad at the end of stints, so I don't really know what was happening at Silverstone, to be honest with you, but there you go. Yeah, let's chat a little bit about the qualifying session, because I've been kind of letting it pass me by in the last few moments. It's Race Clutch who are dominating right now. Jake Dennehan just put that time in of a 1:16.0. I wonder whether we could get into the 15s maybe. 1 year ago, it was a 15.0 that took pole, who was significantly quicker. In fact, the current pole time would have got you outside of the top 20, I'm afraid, last year, but times obviously change, and the times on this occasion are a little bit slower than what we saw 12 months ago when we last visited this racetrack in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Jan Crankvist looked like he was going to go quicker there, but he won't do. He spins out the final corner, and as he said, difficult circuit for everyone to get their times in. Maybe that's a snapshot of what we're going to see throughout the race.
Yeah, the curbs are... Got so many aborted laps today. The curbs are very, very difficult around this track. They're very harsh, and a lot of the corners here, well, basically every corner here is a medium speed corner. So you're right on the limit especially this called it Piratella. If you just touch that exit curb at the wrong angle, it will spin you around the exit as well of coming in towards Tosa, turn 7 I believe it is. Yeah, very difficult. And also there as well, Aqua Minerale, you have to be so careful. The car's very sensitive to the bumps now with these more ground effect cars. You've got to be careful. The front ride height goes all over the place and your downforce goes all over the place, and the car just gets completely unbalanced. It's a tricky one, and I wouldn't be surprised today if we do see a couple of people just storm away if they just get in a rhythm around here.
Oh, there's the curb again, Manuel Biancalilla, and that's it. He decides not to complete the lap. Well, he's going to be on row 4 at best here, although he is ahead of Michi Hoyer and Yerni Simičić in what's a mixed-up grid, you've got to say. Out over the line now as well for Matthew Williams, who is currently down in 13th. He'll be hoping for a little bit better than that. Will he get there? The line's a long way around this corner here, and he will finally get to it. He does improve quite significantly, actually, but he doesn't get any positions out of it. What a time at the moment from Matthias Stair and his teammate Patrick Servet as well, standing in for Cosmo Picciuto here today. Sharing row 3, what a bizarre grid we've got going on at the moment, with a lot of teammates starting to pair up as well on the front row, second row and third row. Isaac Hillison is out qualifying currently Dennis Jordan, who's not really had a great season. It's not been a great one for Ferrari, in all honesty. Hillison now is coming up towards the line and should, with a small improvement, be able to make up quite a few places here. Let's see if he does. And the answer to that is no. Not many improvements here. Maybe Jonas Braxok has got one in the offing here for a pole position.
Yerni Simičić jumping up into 4th place. That is a crucial one for him to get his championship hopes back on track. He really needs to start winning these races. Now Braxok across the line. Can he put it on pole position? Just 1.5 tenths or so. He needs purple in that middle sector. Across the line, he's going to go second place. It is by 1/10 of a second. Dennehan still out front.
And he's in the pit lane as well, Jake Dennehan. That will be it. Owen McCorgie's still out there at the moment. Jan Kranklist bobbled over the curbs at the Variante Alta there in a not ideal fashion. He is out of the session as well. Here's Owen McCorgie. Can he restore the front row for Race Clutch as they try and lock out the first 2 slots of this grid? A long way to the line, of course, and he needs just over 0.5 tenth if he can manage it for the current runner-up in the championship. He's got it. He's taken pole from his teammate. Owen McCorgie spins in celebration at a wonderful lap at Imola. He's taken it by 8 thousandths of a second.
That's a huge lap. That's a huge lap to get himself up towards the front, because look where Yannick Bock is in P11. The championship is going to be wide open with the point spread that could have by the time we get to the end of the race. Make that P12 for Bock as Callas gets inside the top 10 as we round out the qualifying session here. And that is quite something to see just how close these times are. But we do have a little bit of a gap to the front to Race Clutch.
Goodness me. This is a remarkable set of circumstances for Owen McCorgie, who all of a sudden is staring a big day in the face. 8 thousandths of a second ahead of his teammate in what's been a great day for the team. Race Clutch currently leading the team standings, and with this performance look like they could be on their way to wrapping that one up early. In 3rd position, pushed down at the end, was Jonas Braxok. He couldn't quite take another pole position to add to his collection. Yerni Simičić pulls out a 4th place from seemingly nowhere. Patrick Servet does a really good job to get up into 5th out of the Upper Brabham driver Martin Mergley. Matthias Stair with a great performance too in 7th, ahead of Manuel Biancalilla, who is ahead of Michi Hoyer and Sander Callas, who will share row 5. Just outside of the top 10, it was Jan Kranklist, who couldn't really get a lap together towards the end there. Yannick Bock, championship leader, down in 12th. And, well, that is why it's such a big day for Owen McCorgie and all those behind him in the championship. Isaac Hillison out qualifies his teammate in 13th with the 2 Optimino eSports cars in 14th and 15th. Dennis Jordan is down in 16th. He'll be disappointed with that as well, with Thomas Smith stepping in for Ikweka Lalu today in 17th, that of Giordano Valeriano. Then it's Kostas Vanvoukas and George Zargianis, with Philip Pushka and Stavros Mercedes at the back of the grid. In fact, Mercedes didn't even set a time during that session. Well, 63 laps ahead of us, and I don't really know what we're going to see over the course of today's race, to be honest with you, but Owen McCorgie must see this as a huge, huge opportunity. If the race were to end as they have just qualified, he would take over the championship lead. That's what a big of a swing that we're seeing on our screens at the moment.
Yeah, that's huge. I am very much looking forward to this race, actually. I don't know what strategy is going to be the best, as we haven't all season. I don't know what driving style strategy as such, like racecraft strategy, that people are going to have, because we have this long front straight here with the DRS about halfway down. So there is definitely good potential to overtake, but then at the same time, with the DRS being not the longest, it could potentially cause some trains. But it's like, okay, well, how far up the train do I need to move in that first stint? So it could definitely be some interesting tactics from the drivers. What I would expect is a lot of drivers to get as far into that first stint as they can, no matter what strategy they are doing, just because it's so many laps around here. It's 63 laps. As I said, if you're going to do a two-stop, you still need to do about 20 laps in that first stint.
Yeah, it's a long way. Can feel like a long way. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter race than what we've seen in some of the others, especially at last time out with the British Grand Prix, which was a relatively short one just because it's so quick around there, especially slower than Australia and circuits like that. But it should be an interesting race. I do wonder, though, and fear somewhat as well, for those who maybe haven't qualified so well. A lot of drivers in front of them. How easy is it going to be for those drivers to make their way through the field? Because Imola is famously not that easy to overtake on.
I think you can definitely overtake. It just depends if the car ahead of you also has the DRS, and if it turns into a bit of a DRS train. If it's 1v1, you can definitely do it, because the straight is so long, and with the amount of braking zones we have around here, you have the ability to just dump the push to pass for the whole straight. It's not like you're going to completely drain your battery by doing that, like we see at other tracks where maybe it's a bit more difficult to regen. So it really just depends on the race situation. And then also, say you're battling with someone, they overtake the couple of cars ahead of you. You kind of need to follow them working up the train. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck behind and getting, a little bit sort of a difficult situation. So I think being smart today, just with how the track is, I think, the being smart is the key thing to this race.
Yeah, it's going to be a race that's raced a bit differently to some of the others. And I mean, none of the circuits have been particularly easy, per se, to overtake on. I mean, look at the British Grand Prix a couple of weeks ago. You'd say that's one of the best tracks for making overtakes, but it was difficult around there too. It's a balance, very much so, in making it, not too easy, but you also want to make it possible to overtake. And I wonder what we're going to see today in that respect. Is it going to be one of those races where it is very much follow the leader, or are we going to get a lot of battles here today? I wonder. Well, we'll wait and see. But I think one thing's for sure. This is going to be a very different race to any of the ones we've got coming after this. Maybe Japan, I suppose, is a little bit similar in that respect. Narrow circuit too. Difficult challenge. But we got the Turkish Grand Prix coming up in 3 weeks after this. Then the Belgian Grand Prix a fortnight after that. And 4 weeks later, the US Grand Prix as well. They're going to be different races to this one. That is for sure. Just because of the way that those circuits race compared to Imola here today. But the drivers now making their way onto the grid, and we'll get our first answers here as to how many soft tyres we're going to see. I'd imagine not very many. It's going to be mediums and hards for the most part, but what combination do you use of those? How do you use them throughout the day? That's the key.
So we've seen races won this season where drivers have started on the soft, medium and the hard. All three compounds have been used at the start of a race by a race winner. So that is very interesting. It looks like it's mediums on the front row for race clutch, but Brakshock in third on the hards as it stands. Mergely, his teammate, and sixth also on the hards. Soft, it showed for a moment there for Michihoya in P9 before we got the update. So let's have a look as they work their way through the formation lap.
Yeah, it's difficult to trust that graphic. Well, ever, actually. But yeah, anyway, we'll leave that for a moment while we look at the starting grid. So Migorgi leads them around. He's on pole ahead of his teammate Jake Danahan with Jonas Brakshock and Jerne Simoncic. Needs to make up some points, does Jerne, from fourth position on the grid here today. Fifth place is going to be Patrick Savet with a wonderful time. And Go Team had a great qualifying. They're on the outside with Matthias Stair in seventh. Martin Mergli and Manuel Biancalilla will be on the other side of the grid, if you like. Michihoya and Sander Kallas rounded out the top 10. Jan Grenqvist couldn't really get it together towards the end of that session, so he's 11th ahead of championship leader Yannick Bock. Only 3 points on offer, or 4 points on offer for that position at the moment, by the way. He needs to move up through the order. Isaac Kirsten is 13th, by qualifying his teammate. He's ahead of the two up Timno cars, Matthew Williams and Ruben Mercedes. It's then Dennis Jordan in 16th. Thomas Schmidt is in 17th for Super Venturi today. Standing in for Jukka-Pekka Laulu, Giordano Valeriano, Kostas Van Vukas and George Zaragianis round out the top 20, with Philip Puska and Stavros Mutzidis rounding out the grid. So a couple of new drivers on the grid here today, and by new drivers, of course, I mean drivers who are standing in for others. But what a qualifying from Go Team to be up there so well. They're not here on the standings, you'll notice. That's the notable thing about that, I suppose. The fact they've not had a very good season so far. They are doing all right in this qualifying session anyway. There are the championship standings, though, and you can just see what an important day this might be for Owen McGorgy as he tries to just bring in that margin of 19 points to Yannick Bock.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, there's a big fight towards the lower end of the Constructors' Championship as well. So these big performances potentially for Go Team up there inside the top 10. Also Brabham, I guess, as well. And even Biancalillo, because it's sort of just himself with Valeriano a bit lower down. Those could be some huge points. And, of course, Optiminal coming in later in the season as well. It's certainly going to be a tight one as we enter the second half of this championship.
Yeah, Valeriano has scored the same amount of points in the first race as he has in all the others, which is a bit unfortunate for him. So you're right, it is Biancalillo a little bit on his own there, but we'll keep you updated on the team standings, of course. The reason why I'm so surprised at Ghost Team, by the way, is because they're still last in the team standings. It's a pretty remarkable story, really. Let's see how they can continue on in the race. A couple of soft tyres as far as the graphics are going at the moment, but as I said earlier, not especially good to trust them all the time, although it does seem that Brexit maybe has gone for the soft tyres. Let's see, though, whether that is going to punch him into a lead, maybe, to start off with, as the race cuts drivers will try and hang on and lead the field away here at the San Marino Grand Prix. It's round 6 of the Formula SimRacing World Championship in 2024. A breakfast season so far, heading into its second half, as we get ready for the San Marino Grand Prix. And we are underway. Owen McGorgy with a good launch off the start and a great launch through the middle there from Mitchy Hoyer in the background. He's going through into the top 10 positions as the two race cars go nose to tail into turn 1 and 2. They lead ahead of Jonas Simicic, and then it's Jonas Brakshock in 4th place. Sevet is in 5th, and then there's contact in the background. Thomas Smith has got no front wing. There's other bodywork flying all over the place as well through the first chicane, but thankfully for the most part they've all got through. Giordano Valeriano off the back of the field, unfortunately, as he's got caught up in incidents. But it's a good start for pole sitter Owen McGorgy and Jonas Simicic too, who's up to 3rd place.
Yeah, must have been contact between Smith and Valeriano, or at least they were involved, as that is a big shame for Super Venturi, losing a car effectively. He's going to have to come in from that. A bit of a dive, potentially to the inside of Matt Williams. No, as he's following Killison through. They've stayed in formation, the two Ferraris and the two Optimals, right next to each other as we get towards the end of this first lap. And as it seems that it is Brakshock on the soft tyres in that 4th place, going to be expecting him to be making some moves potentially in this first stint.
Well, exactly, because he didn't get off to a very good start, an actual launch. And look at Mitchy Hoyer gaining a few places because of those not because of those soft tyres, partly because, but it was also a very good start. It's a bit of a shame for Brakshock that he wasn't able to do the same, because clearly those soft tyres do give you a bit of an advantage over the line, but the Hungarian wasn't able to make any use of that, really.
No, it's, I guess, just a tight turn 1 here as well. And you know, if you get a bit boxed in, you can't really use that extra grip that you have. But what it is going to do, and I think from memory we saw him do this in Silverstone as well, it's going to give him the undercut in each of the pit stops. So he'll always be gaining a few seconds there, but then of course he'll be struggling when we get to the final stint. We've got Smith and Zalagianis. So Zalagianis also lost his front wing there on that first lap.
Looks like it. So a couple of drivers off the back as a result. Matt Williams trying to make up some positions here. He's not actually moved anywhere since the start, actually, at the moment. Hillison, Williams, Michele and Jordan all staying in the same place. It's sort of collecting near their own teammates here. And now you get into the sort of racing that you see in Imola here. Everybody getting single file. And now where do you sort of go from here in the mid-pack? How do you move through? Because as you were talking about earlier on, if the driver in front of you has also got DRS when it's enabled, they will be difficult to overtake, really, and not certainly a sitting duck that you might see elsewhere. It's pretty much coming from Jake Dennehan right up in 2nd place.
Yeah, this is where you got to get creative. And to be fair, it's not really. It's one of the things. It's not really the point of the race where you want to be making those overtakes either, because everyone's on basically the same tyres, same wear. What we saw in the pro race, just an hour or so ago, though, was when you do get the tyre differentials overtakes are fairly common around here, so do not be worried about that. As much as it is Imola, it's definitely going to be happening a little bit later on. But one thing that does slightly worry me, 2 seconds already at the front.
Well, yeah, is that because Denahan's sort of lifting, well, not lifting off, but not quite pushing as hard as he could be, or is Owen McGorgy just a lot quicker than the rest? Because that 2 second gap is significantly bigger than almost any other gap we've got, apart from those who have pitted.
It's going to be a fun one. Let's see a replay of what happened at the start. There's already front wings flying and contact is made. So he's got one of these Super Venturis. That must be Smith on his right, and then Smith has been hit somewhere around that, and that's how he's lost his front wing on the back potentially of the Ferrari car there, and it's just all gone wrong for the drivers in the midfield. It wasn't quite as chaotic though as I was expecting, to be honest. Not
really, but that's probably a good thing. This is a bit later. So they've both just clipped, I think they've both just pretty innocently clipped off their front wings on the back of someone else. They have indeed. And there's the second one. Where's
it's Zalagianis's. So the first front wing was Zalagianis's.
Yes.
He lost that, unfortunately, there in the back of the pack. I mean, that's very unlucky, I think, from those drivers.
Yeah, it's all a bit congested down in towards the first braking zone on the lap. Turn 2 as it is, the Varianti Tamburello. And unfortunately, bodywork lost on the opening lap. Jake Denahan's beginning to open the taps a little bit here now. A second is the gap to Ewan Simitic, who's got Jonas Brakstok for company, although Brakstok's not been able to make the progress maybe that he wanted. He'll be hoping at least that those soft tyres can go a decent way round here, because otherwise he really is in a bit of trouble. Will have wasted the softer tyres in traffic and come out in a lot of traffic and have just be a long way down from where he needs to be. So this is a pretty important overtake that he's going to have to make as we go back to Yannick Pock here, the championship leader. Not in trouble, don't want to say, but he is not even in the front group anymore. Sander Callas has let the 8 in front of him get away.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say Yannick's not winning this race from this position, but how close can he get to that top 5? That is going to be the big question here, because as you say, Callas is losing that gap to Bianca Lilla, and Bianca Lilla's gap already to sort of Hoyer as well is starting to get a little bit large, or a little bit more large than he would expect. So this is going to be a tough part of the race. The good thing is though, Callas doesn't have the DRS ahead, but Bock not close enough, not willing to just dump the battery just yet.
Well, it's a lot closer, I will say that much. From the 10th place on backwards, everybody just closed right up on the way into Tamburello last time round, but there's just no way through really. Lap 5 already of the San Marino Grand Prix this afternoon in round 6 of the Formula SimRacing World Championship for 2024. Owen McGorgy leading by a couple of seconds ahead of his teammate Jake Denahan, who's trying to get away from Jonas Simitic and looked at one stage like he was going to, but he didn't. And now he's bringing the rest of the top 10 apart from Sander Callas along with him. Callas is at the head of this second group, which pretty much goes down right the way to Stavros Mercedes, although the last couple of drivers in that train are not quite in with them all. And then George Zalgianis and Thomas Smith are a long way back after losing their front wing on the opening lap of the race. So that's pretty much where we are. How much of that race situation is going to change though until the first pit stops, because we're already seeing a situation where there is very little overtaking, very little opportunities to overtake as well so far.
Yeah, let's see how close Bock wants to get, but no, not close enough. It seems he's getting there very late in the straight. It's going to have to be a big dive in towards turn 1. Doesn't go through this time round. No one making moves in the background either. So Callas either is using a lot of battery right now or has good top speed, maybe some lower downforce in that car, or either way, Bock just not able to stay close enough in the final couple of corners, and this is really going to hinder his race, because we saw this last time out as well, where Callas, similar to McGorgy, as we were mentioning earlier, sort of dropped off later in the stint, so needs to be careful with the gaps ahead not opening up too much.
Yeah, let's see. I'm not entirely sure he can do a whole lot about what's happening in front of him at the moment, to be honest with you, but let's see. There is Sevet in 5th position. As I say, driving for Go Team, who are currently the lowest point scoring team by, well, I don't say by quite some distance, but 5 points is quite a lot down there, and so it's not ideal at all for Go Team, unfortunately. That's a good start to this race. 5th and 7th for the two of them. It feels like the conservative choice really to go for the medium tyres early on here. Soft tyre seems to have been a bit of a left field choice that I'm not really sure is making that much difference for Brackstock at the moment. Other than the start from Richie Hoyer, which he clearly benefited from having the soft tyres, I'm not really seeing that there has been much benefit to that subsequently for either of those drivers.
I agree, although in the pro race we did see the softs with Tom Alderman go about 24 laps, I think he did. Of course, that was at the end of the race, though, with less fuel compared to now. So even if we say that's 20 laps this time around, that still is that magic number of still doing a two-stop if you divide the race by 3. So I think he's going to be okay, but I do think the main thing here is going for that undercut because he's not making any progress on the track. So he does need to be thinking about that, but you would assume he's put that into his calculations.
You'd hope so. Up out of Aqua Minerale they go through turn 12 and 13.
Stara. He's had some issue. He's gone around at Piratella. Yeah. He was up inside the top 10. He's now dropped down into 18th place.
Oh, that's such a shame. Shouldn't have said anything about Go Team, should I really? Matthias, unfortunately, has gone off. Don't want to say as a result, but almost immediately afterwards. This is the dangers of Imola. It doesn't give you any room for error. And Matthias Ster has unfortunately found that out right here. Doesn't clip the grass on the way in, gets the power down, and it's those curbs again. Proving to be very, very vicious around this circuit, actually, and he fully spins around into the gravel and has to take quite some time getting back going again as well.
Yeah, that curb, that's such a tough place to rejoin as well. Yeah, that curb is deadly, absolutely deadly. You just go on it a little bit too much and unfortunately just plays with the suspension and you go for a spin, and now he's down at 18th place and he's not really going to be getting back into the top scoring points. So it's now his teammate Patrick Sever who needs to be putting these drivers under pressure. And just remember, Sever is a pro driver. He's got race wins, multiple podiums to his name in pro, but to then jump up and be P5 in the World Championship, that is a very good showing so far. I know he got pole position in pro earlier, so he has got some good pace here.
Yeah, it's a good showing so far from Patrick Sever, but there you go. How can he continue that for the rest of the day? There's McGorgy, 8 laps down very nearly now, and he is flying 2.5 seconds ahead of the rest. And as of right now, with Yannick Bock down the field, they will be level on points at the end of the day. Are we seeing the makings here of a 2-horse race? Because Tate Dennehan currently is 33 points off Yannick Bock. He would gain quite a few of those back, of course. And I guess he's only 14 off his teammate. Would only become 18 at the moment. But it could be becoming a 2-horse race here between Owen McGorgy and Yannick Bock. And we've certainly discussed this before in this season, because they have been the 2 standout names so far. 2 of the only drivers to finish in the top 10 in every race. Not quite the only drivers. Would you believe the other one, the third one, is Mitchie Hoyer? This is a bit of a bizarre stat.
Yeah, Hoy's been having a very consistent, not necessarily the fastest season of his life, but he has had a pretty consistent season with some solid results. Just needs to work his way a bit closer to that podium in the future races. But looking how easy it is for Yannick Bock to have a race where he's now down in P10, I wouldn't count anyone in the top 5 of the championship out just yet, because you never know what is going to happen. Maybe in a couple of races' time if they're still 40-50 points back. But right now I think we can still just have a bit of hope that we are going to be getting some drivers coming back into it. Remember Grankvist as well. I mean, he was leading the championship, or joint leading the championship at one point, and now he's a bit off the way in the points and down in P11 as well. So things can turn around very, very quickly. It's now up to the likes of Omagorgi to have that Jerne Simicic consistency that we've seen in previous seasons come out now, and that's generally what wins you the championship.
Yeah, it certainly is. You need that combination of good results and consistently so as well. Yannick Bock could be in a bit of trouble here. Jan Grankvist is pretty close to him down the front straight here on the way towards Tamburello. They've both got the DRS though, and that should save Yannick Bock here, who is on the back of Sander Callas now, who was sort of joined up with some others ahead of him now. Martin Mergley and Manuel Biancalula have been caught up a little bit here, but still waiting for the battles to really commence here. I wonder whether we're seeing a bit of first stint syndrome, if you like, where everyone's staying where they are because it is the first stint and there's a long way to go, or whether they really are struggling to overtake one another.
I think it's a mixture of the two at the moment, just because everyone is in that DRS. Once you start getting the pit stops, and then all these gaps start opening up. We have different tyre strategies coming. It'll be fine. We do see this in pretty much every race over the course of the season. Right now, they're just, basically enjoying their sort of bit of chill time, and then it'll go a little bit crazy later on, that's for sure, because it seems like all the strategies always seem to end up coming together in the final 5 laps. We have mentioned that you can do all sorts of different tyre strategies. I know almost everyone is on the mediums here, but I wouldn't be surprised if some go to the mediums again, some go to the hards. Who knows, some might even go to the softs in that middle stint. It's all a bit all over the place, and we have all 3 compounds being used inside the top 7.
We certainly do, which is a start I wasn't expecting to see at the start. They side by side for 5th as Mitchie Hoyer tries to make use of his soft tyres and finally does so. Don't really think Patrick Semmett was expecting that, because he very much battled with him through turn 2 and 3 there, but it was somewhat reluctant to at the same time, and he loses out on his top 5 position. We'll see it again here on the replay. We're just diving down the inside, almost unexpectedly so. Semmett was drifting his way down the straight really, and not really making a full effort to defend the position at all, and Mitchie Hoyer just pounced on the opportunity.
Yeah, that was a nice move, to be fair, from the German. He's got through, considering Semmett had the DRS as well, so definitely some battery being used up there. But I think the reason why is because he can see this gap just ever so slightly by car length or 2 getting a bit bigger than he would have wanted ahead, and he can see the 3 cars also bunching up, so he wants to get involved in that. As he's on the softs, he will have the pit stop coming first, you would expect. So he wants to be close enough to make some sort of undercut work, and it's really working, I think, because he's pulled away from Semmett on this lap, and it visually, to me, seems like he's got a bit closer to the Brabham car of Bragshot, who's now looking on the back of the 4-time champ.
Simicic using a bit of battery to get away himself there, I think, but Denham may well respond, and there'll be, will there be a move? Quite close on the way in towards turn 1 that time. There was a bit of a closing of the gap, but no move made on that first braking zone of the lap. So the 5 of them will continue. They're still nearly 3 seconds off Owen McGorgy, who's leading this race by some distance here. It's worth noting as well that as the pole sitter, track position was always going to be very, very important today. You said a long time ago that Yannick Bock was never going to win this race, even despite his talents. Just starting out the top 10 is not going to get you a win around this circuit very often. You wouldn't have thought. For example, Colin Spork, who won the race last year, qualified on pole as well.
Yeah, it's definitely that type of track, isn't it? To be honest. And the thing for me is with the way that the track layout is, but also the curbs here, you have to be just on it to be fast. And what we saw with Colin Spork last year at this track, I'm not being funny, is probably the best performance I've ever seen from a driver. He was just so much better than everyone else. And now I know the amount of practice that a lot of these guys put into it. It's not like no one was trying, and Spork just absolutely demolished them. And I know McGorgy's not really demolishing them today, but if you just have that extra bit of confidence, extra bit of feel, extra bit of rhythm around the track where you can just hit the curbs at the perfect angle every lap, then of course you're going to be more consistent. And maybe Simicic here coming for a move. No, close the DRS a bit early.
Now, you say McGorgy's not dominating, but I mean, if he continues to pull out at this rate, I mean, that's a big if, isn't it? But he would win by 12 seconds, so that's still half of what Colin Spork did, but even so, that's not unimpressive by any means to be leading by that margin. So, he's doing a good job for the moment. Simicic there got a lot closer to Dennehan, as he commented. I just wonder whether he's beginning to get a little bit itchy here as well, and whether he wants to move on a bit here, because he's seen Hoyer moving up. He's seen that it is possible to overtake. He obviously knew that already, but he'd like to keep Jonas Praxis at bay as well, and a better way of doing that even is to move up to second as well.
Yeah, so he'll want to defend from the undercut from the 2 softs behind, and he wants to stop McGorgy getting too far away. So that's why he wants to get past. And you kind of mentioned it earlier. Is Jake sort of having this gap on purpose, or is this just McGorgy, as I was mentioning a lap ago, just being that little bit more confident maybe at this track? It's not like Jake's going slow, to be honest, but you know what I mean. Interesting, but he's defending to the left-hand side there, so he definitely wants to keep Simicic back. Simicic not even trying to get in the slipstream, not even trying to get close, to be honest, this time around.
That is odd, considering how close he's gotten these last couple of times. Feels like if he was a little bit more on it out the final corner and was following him around a little bit, he could give it a go, but that maybe Denahan's only getting caught so quickly because he's not using any energy towards the end of the straight or whatever. There could be any number of things at play. Dennis Jordan has made an overtake there. Oh, and Ruben Mercedes has made it even easier for him to get away just by having a bit of a slide through the Tamburello chicane, and that has allowed the Ferrari man to move up to 14th place and consolidate that too. It is possible to overtake in the pack, it seems, but you've just got to have the right combination of things set up for you. And at the moment, Yannick Bock does not have that. He's still 10th, stuck behind Mergley, Biancaluna and Callas, all in the group ahead of him.
Yeah, look at this train. This is difficult to be in as a driver as well, because you've got so many cars going around you. You can't really do much. It's a little bit frustrating. You have to just stay calm and just get in a rhythm. It's a tough situation to do, though, so I don't envy the drivers being like that. Very high pressure situation as they try and work their way through the latter parts of the opening stint here at Imola. And I reckon by the time we get another few laps in, we'll be starting to see some drivers think about doing some undercuts, because look how close they are. If you do an undercut and you get like 2 seconds, you're overtaking 4 or 5 cars.
Yeah, exactly. And because there's so many corners around here, there's a lot of places to make a difference on an undercut. Here goes round the outside Callas on Manuel Biancaluna for 9th place, and he's done it at 8th place, excuse me. And Sander Callas is moving on up here. Biancaluna doesn't want to let him go, but he is struggling in this stint of the race. Looking back up the inside of the way towards the Villeneuve chicane, that was a bit of a defence and a weave and a block maybe from Sander Callas, but Biancaluna can't respond, and he's struggling in this first stint.
And is this now the overlap where the hard consistency is overcoming the slight pace advantage from the medium tyres? That could be a very interesting one to see, because there aren't too many drivers on the hards. In fact, it's really only just Mergley and Callas, isn't it? The next is Zalajanis in P21, who's already made a pit stop. So we don't have too much read of the hard tyres just yet, but maybe this is the time, that 15 or so, where the mediums are now going to be slower than the hards.
It may well be we've got to that stage. What's going to happen to the softs in that case? Surely they're going to be falling off pretty soon, but they're really not at the moment. Brakshock is still right with Simoncic right now, and Michi Hoyer's there as well. Sevet has stayed with them, but I don't think he's particularly interested in overtaking quite for the moment. So it's very interesting that the hard tyres coming into their own in that case. Whereas the softs still not going away. Here goes Simoncic on the back of Jake Denahan. Is there a late move coming here? No. He's getting close, though. It does feel like he's at that distance where he could overtake if he wanted to, but he's not doing for the moment. And there maybe is a bit of that in the field, actually, because the gaps are not big, but the overtakes are not frequent either.
Yeah, definitely. It's a proper tough situation for these drivers to try and make these moves, and that's why when we're seeing them, they are somewhat forceful overtakes, or decisive overtakes, I should say, to make sure that when you get that opportunity, you can do so. One driver we haven't really mentioned too much yet in this race as well is Martin Mergley. Lead driver on the hard tyres. He got a couple of seconds ahead, a couple of seconds behind, but in a solid 7th place. And for a driver who he's been in 3 different teams over the last 12 months, and he's sort of been a little bit all over the place in that regard. He's had a race ban this season, so he hasn't had the easiest of times, but he's still coming back, only a few places behind his teammate, who, as we know, Brakshock, he hasn't got a race win, but he's got multiple podiums and pole positions to his name.
Yep, I'll not bring out the stat about Brakshock poles and no wins again, because he probably doesn't enjoy it, to be honest with you.
And a Norris moment.
I don't know if he listens to this back or not, but I hope for his sake not, because of how much I mentioned it. Meanwhile, Simoncic is closing in on Denahan, who's not going to offer much resistance at all. Doesn't even defend the inside line on the way towards turn number 2 there. And Jurnej Simoncic moves up to position number 2. Now, is this the moment where Simoncic says, I'm going to let fly now and try and catch the race leader, McGorgy? Or is this the moment where the battles really begin and Jake Denahan really tries to make life difficult here for Jurnej Simoncic, because he somewhat surprisingly didn't make it very difficult for the reigning champion there.
I think Jake is just missing a 10th or so a lap of a raw pace that he would have wanted, and looks like Simoncic is starting to pull away, and you're right. Simoncic needs to get this down a second or so, really, to start putting some pressure on McGorgy. And with the stint rapidly coming to an end, actually, he's going to be wanting to do something and try and make some moves later in this stint. So I wonder if the floodgates will be open now, and if Brakshock is now going to be looking to overtake Denahan this lap around.
Well, is it going to quite work like that for Braxton? Because he is on aging soft tyres, which have gone quite a long way, to be fair. 17 laps nearly, is a third of the way into the race nearly. We're 4 laps away from getting to that third mark. And if we're talking about 2 stops today, then you do need to split this race into 3, really. So how long is he going to leave it from this point? Dennehan, in the meantime, lets Simičić run away, really. He's got the DRS as Dennehan, really, but he didn't use much energy there to try and stick with Simičić, who gained a tenth or 2 on that lap to Ewan McGorgy in the lead.
As Bock has got past Biancalilla as well in the meantime, so he's trying to now chase up. And to be fair, Bock's only 10 seconds off the lead, so we are staying very, very close indeed. Even Dennis Jordan down in 14th place, and I guess you include Macheda in that. Top 15, just 13 seconds, less than a second between all of the drivers in the top 15. So we are staying very, very close. And once the pit stops start coming into it, then obviously that is going to expand those gaps a little bit. But it is a very close, very tight midfield battle right now. Points go down to P15 as well. So all of these are for your championship points and ultimately the prizes at the end of the season. Yeah,
it's a good balance, 15, isn't it? Just having that difficulty of getting points, but doesn't give it quite to everybody. As Grankvist is under pressure from Isaac Kirsten. He got it all wrong, Aqua Minerale. You may have seen the dust in the background. He was all over the place, but unfortunately Hillerson was as well out of the Variante Alta, and Matthew Williams will be very close on the way down towards Ravazza here. I think the Ferrari driver had to use a bit of energy to try and get away. Meanwhile, race leader Ewan McGorgy's in. This could be a bit of trouble for him if he ends up in a bit of traffic, which I think he might well do. Into the box he goes. That's a bit of an awkward entry, isn't it? As it just ramps up slightly. But anyway, he's in, changes tyres. Hard tyres this time round for him. Just ahead of him, Jonas Braxop also in. Jan Grankvist and Isaac Hillerson behind him came in. Braxop makes his way pretty much to the end of pit lane where Brabham eSports are situated. It's mediums for him. But Grankvist was on the mediums. He pulls into his box as well. Where's Ewan McGorgy? What traffic is he in? He's just in behind Van Fucus and Mercedes. So I don't especially like this, to be honest. It's not ideal at all in my mind. He's stuck behind the Netrex drivers who are entitled to battle with him.
This could be a bit of a turning point for the lead of this race. I would assume that the hammer time is out for these 2 leading drivers of Dennehan and Simičić. They don't have Brakshock behind to worry about either. And Dennehan is staying fairly close. So let's see just exactly the times. Hasn't been personal bests, though, from Jone Simičić. So he doesn't quite have the tyres to go that fast. And is he going to respond? I would assume he would and try to not let that gap get too big. Or is he going to be worried about that traffic as well? No, they are going to come in. Makes perfect sense. And is anyone going to continue? Yep, Michi Hoyer. So this is interesting. So the driver on the softs is now going longer than the drivers on the mediums ahead. So the tyres are definitely working fairly well this season.
What is going on? Can you imagine tuning into a race on paper on lap 20, seeing the soft tyre run and not having stopped, still in the lead of the race? You'd say, what the hell is going on? But there you go. 5 drivers in the pit lane. As joining them is Kostas Van Fucus. That will help Ewan McGorgy, who's dispatched of all of those very quickly. There he goes, past Jone Simičić, along with traffic as well. So it's not worked out too badly for McGorgy at all. There goes Braksop, down on the brakes into Tamburello, and he's ahead of Simičić. Great stop and a great outlap from Jonas Braksop, who is ahead now of Jone Simičić. Through as well goes Jake Dennehan as he passes Valeriano for a position, although that won't matter by the end of the day. Dennehan loses out on a couple of places then compared to where he qualified. Simičić is pretty much where he was, but it's Braksop the real winner.
Yes, he is, and this is, as well, I mentioned halfway through that first stint, I think the main reason to go on the softs was the pit earlier potentially and get an undercut, and that is what he's done. So he's going to be 2 places up on that, and that is going to be frustrating, to be honest, for Simičić and Dennehan to lose that. They probably weren't thinking about him too much, just looking at McGorgy, and McGorgy is also up the road. So difficult one indeed. If we got some pit stops, yes we have. Michi Hoyer coming down pit road as he was on those soft compound tyres. Got the optimal of Williams in behind that Dennis Jordan had actually got past. So Dennis Jordan having a slightly stronger end to that stint. And is that another set of the soft tyres? It is.
Oh, goodness me.
Similar to what we saw from Race Clutch in Hockenheim, going for multiple sets of the softs.
And speaking of race cuts, they've gone through and will take the race lead again. Owen McGorgy goes through. Look at that group, though, coming through for second. It's Simičić trying to make the moves here as they both get past Mercedes, and Jake Dennehan needs to do the same here as well. He's desperately trying to cling on to them. Oh, and he gets so close to the back of the Netrex driver on the way down towards the Villeneuve chicane. Now gets through, but Jake Dennehan clinging on by the skin of his teeth here. They've got rid of Michi Hoyer, though, in these pit stop cycles.
Yeah, Hoyer pitting later and on the tyres that were worn out the most. So he's dropped out of the slipstream, out of the DRS. So that's the important factor. But he has the softs, so he will catch up to them. And he's clearly thinking, I still think this is so funny. They're basically using the compounds for the same distances, pretty much. He's got Patrick Sever on the back of him now on the hard tyres. But it just depends if you want to be slightly faster at the beginning of the stint. Arno has updated to the mediums for Michi Hoyer. Has updated to the mediums, but still, that is in favour of Sever in behind. But either way, the compounds, they just seem to be working. We saw this from Bock in Singapore as well. He went longer on the softs. It just depends on the feel that you have with the tyres.
Yeah, exactly. It's what you prefer, really, rather than what is lasting longest, which is normally what you choose the tyres based on. Yannick Bock still going here. In second position on mediums, along with Bianca Lulu, who's making these tyres last quite a long time, which maybe explains why he's getting overtaken quite so much in the early part of this race. Dennis Jordan's with them as well. I wonder what Dennis Jordan's going to do for the rest of today. It kind of feels like he's drifting through this race almost without getting too much airtime, if you like. Sometimes that's a good thing, but he's sort of just slowly wandering his way through this race almost. And at the moment, this front four are still leading the way. They're a third of the way through now, and quite significantly ahead of those that have already stopped here on the hards and mediums. But it kind of feels like nobody really knows the limits of these tyres in terms of when do you actually need to take them off, because it seems that everybody, as you said earlier, is sort of choosing the tyres based on what they like to drive on rather than how long each tyre is lasting. Now Callas comes in after 22 laps, not because his tyres are worn out particularly, but because he needs to for this strategy, and Dennis Jordan does as well. Yes,
interesting one today. So Bock and Bankalilla, they stay out on the mediums, so they're going lap 23 now. How far are they ahead of McGorgy? So 14 seconds, so they're almost half a pit stop ahead. Just over half a pit stop ahead. So they're still at decent gaps. Interesting to see them going that long. But I guess when you're further back, you might as well try something different. They were sort of down at P10-ish roughly. It's a tough one to do anything from there unless you try something a bit crazy on the strategy.
That's a good point, because this is the first time they're in clean air, if you think about it, for Yannick Bock, who started down outside the top 10. He spent most of today fighting his way through traffic with great difficulty at times. And Manuel Biancalula is not quite in clear air right now, but he basically is. And so maybe that's a way of thinking as well here, because these guys will have got the luxury of clean air earlier, and they have it again now as the field is a little bit more spread out. They're pretty much all in clean air up the front of the field. But if you're starting down the back, you have to do something different to get into that clean air. As we see Dennis Jordan now going to be on a charge, isn't he? He's on the soft compound tyres, the only driver in the field as of right now to do so.
Yeah, he needs to do that because he's now got Matt Williams, he's got Callas, who came out on the hard tyres, remember, and then Mergely, who actually lost, I think, a bit of ground to some of the drivers ahead. Grangfist has done a good job, actually, to jump ahead of all these in that pit stop phase. So DJ needs to catch all of them down. 5 seconds to Grangfist now. And then, obviously, Grangfist is in a little bit no man's land right now. So it's going to be a tough day there for the Ferrari boys, because also Gillison lost quite a bit of time over the course of that pit stop sequence. As we are getting moved, this is Mercedes still out there, continuing to lose places.
Quite rapidly as well. That was Martin Mergley going through. Sander Callas is at the front of another train here, but it's maybe not what he wanted to be at the front of. He was well inside the top 10 not so long ago, but unfortunately he is not with that at all anymore. Now looking for his way through on the way towards Tosa at turn 7, the westerly point on this circuit, if you want to put it like that. And here goes Matthew Williams trying to follow through with Callas, and he's going to take both of them. Matthew Williams is going to take Mercedes and Callas. A great overtake at Piratella as Matthew Williams saw the gap developing in front of him. He saw Carlos getting through on Stavros Mercedes and he just stepped into 11th place.
Yeah, that was very, very opportunistic. I like that from the driver who's been very fast in this series over the years. Got podium places, and Optimal looking fairly strong, keeping both cars up inside the points as it stands. And Dennis Jordan also got through Mercedes, so Mercedes really starting to struggle out there at this moment in time. It moved to the inside maybe from Simčić, who's now looking in his mirrors as he got the race clutch chasing him down.
Yeah, he certainly does. It's all very congested and very busy in this part of the field now. So Braxok at the front of the group, then Juno Simčić, then Jake Dennehan. Michi Hoyle, who's having a good race here, although he has been in this kind of position before. Finished 4th in Singapore, of course. And Patrick Sebert, who's sort of cruising along at the back of this group as well. But somewhat feels like as we approach the halfway mark in this race now that we're seeing a similar situation with these 5 as what we got in the first stint in this race, where they're going to be reluctant to overtake each other for a little while, as long as at least Simčić doesn't lose Jonas Braxo, which is in slight danger of doing at times here.
Yes, definitely. I think we do have a sort of flip-flop in terms of the pace of these drivers. I think if Braxton wasn't there, the gaps would be stringing out a little bit more, but it seems like he was able to obviously get in that position. He's able to hold them up at this moment in time, which means that McGorgy is just sending himself off into the distance. 5-second lead he has now.
Yep, he is absolutely flying. Out front is Owen McGorgy, and he continues to lead here at Imola. Down on the brakes and into Tamburello again for these 5. 4th place is where they're fighting for at the moment. And obviously, Bock and Banculina are going to use 2 different tyre compounds today, but are they going to use that to maybe go to the end on this next set of hard compound tyres? Let's wait and see. This is the overtake for Matthew Williams, who just saw this developing in front of him. Callas diving down the inside. It's on a very narrow line, and to stay on the road, he had to slow down so much that he got right in the way of Stavros Mercedes, and Matthew Williams made his way through. Credit has to go to Dennis Jordan actually as well for going around the outside on the way towards Acco Minerale as well. A couple of good overtakes there.
Yeah, nice opportunistic work from them, as you have to do in this type of racing. You get your opportunity, the door opens. We haven't seen too many overtakes realistically, so you have to just send it when you see that opportunity open up in front of you. And one gap I'm managing, what I was about to say, is the gap between Biancalilla and McGorgy, but Biancalilla comes in 27 laps on the mediums. I reckon he's going to be taking hards and going to the end of this race. We've seen him do 1 stop less quite a lot, which probably means that Bock is on the same strategy as well. And this is an interesting one. But McGorgy, this is the interesting point though, because he's now under 8 seconds behind Bock. So yes, they both have a pit stop left in this race, but Bock is going to have to go way, way further on that final stint. But at least Bock might gain a few places from where he was down in P11 at one point.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to need to stop the bleeding here a little bit, because that gap coming down is crashing down actually at the moment, and the problem may come a little bit later as he finds himself in traffic. He's going to be in with the Jordan Mercedes group, I think, because that's where Manuel Biancalilla has come out, although he's got a few seconds of clean air. The advantage though for Bock is that when he makes his pit stop, compared to McGorgy, he'll be on newer hard, presuming he does go on the hard tyres, he'll be on newer hard tyres, and so not only will he stop the bleeding in terms of he'll stop losing time in theory, he might actually gain back some time before McGorgy begins to bring that gap back down again, but it's rendered all insignificant if he loses too much time in this stint, and he's starting to lose quite a lot now. The gap only 6 seconds.
Yeah, certainly a tough moment of the race for Bock, because he kind of just has to keep going, and I think he's just been unlapped. I think Zalijanis has just overtaken him, so Bock is struggling so much that the ground effect a lap down has actually just gained that track position.
Well, that's something you don't see very often. George Giannis actually just set his personal best lap on that time round. He's actually not going very slowly at all. He's faster than the 5 or 6 drivers ahead of him, pretty comfortably on that lap, but he's just a very, very long way behind them. So I can't see him getting any points out of today, although it is always worth continuing at Imola. 5 drivers retired from last year's edition. I actually think that's quite a small number. We've got 2 retirements now. Philip Pushka and Thomas Schmidt are both out of the race, brings us down to 20. But it is always worth going at this circuit because you are likely to get quite a lot of retirements.
Yeah, tough track. Very, very tough track. We already saw, who was it? Stara, wasn't it? Hitting the curb on the exit of Piratella. That could happen so easily to any one of these drivers, especially when we get later in the race, later in the stints. Mistakes do happen and drivers start going around. So definitely a tough track around here. And even with all the modern changes that we've had, as Bok decides to come down the pit lane end of lap 28, so 35 to go on the hards. Even with all the changes it's had over the years, it's still remained a very tough track. So McGorgy retakes the lead.
I'm not sure why Thomas Smith's car is parked there, but it is. Meanwhile, McGorgy does indeed lead on those hard compound tyres. He should be stopping again, but we're unsure as to whether the others will. Let's see as Simoncic makes his way past Jonas Braksuk. That was fairly easy on the power. Now does Jake Dennehan try and follow through, because he has made a couple of overtakes into Villeneuve when his opponent's not quite expecting it, but Braksuk was on that occasion. He used a bit of energy to stay in third place.
Yeah, you definitely saw that there with Braksuk. Just making sure he stayed ahead. But now, Simoncic finally, he's wasted a few laps there, 5 laps or so behind. Can he now try and chase down McGorgy, who gained probably a net 2.5 seconds through all of that? That whole pit stop sequence, the last 10 laps, really gained quite a bit from that. So Simoncic needs to be winning these races. If he can win the races, he has still half a chance to win the championship, especially if Bok, is struggling like he is today. But he can't be losing more points to McGorgy.
No, he can't really afford it, I'm afraid, as he's making good progress right now. Joni Simoncic, second position for now. 5 seconds is the margin. It's quite a gap to try and bring back, but you wouldn't put it past him with more than half the race still remaining. There is McGorgy making his way over the line for the end of lap 29. That's still 34 remaining in the day, just over half of the laps remaining in this race this afternoon. 5 seconds the margin, but yeah, he's got over a second now, Joni Simoncic, and I think the fact that he has pulled away from the rest of the group and he's not got someone getting the DRS off of him is probably going to be helpful for him.
Yes, it certainly is. We're just having a look over a couple of the DNFs. So Philip Pushki, from what I can see, he got a penalty and then retired 5 seconds later. So I think Pushki sped in the pit lane because he got it says pit out, then a pen, then a DNF, all within 5 seconds. So I think he got a speeding penalty and then decided to DNF. Another DNF is Thomas Schmidt, who he's had quite a few incident reports. So I think he's had a few spins and then he's eventually DNF'd from that one as well, also in the pit lane. So just a couple of safe retirements there from those drivers in the pit lane. Not some big crashes necessarily.
All right, well, still no big crashes arguably in this race so far. Only a couple of front wings have fallen off down at turn number 1 on the opening lap of the race, but other than that, it has been a clean race. Mitchie Hoyer looks like he's going to be next to overtake Jonas Braksuk because Jake Dennehan did not so long ago. And now Mitchie Hoyer is going to do the same. Despite the DRS for Braksuk, he can't hold back Mitchie Hoyer. He goes flying into Tamburello and makes it out the other side as well, intact and on the road. And so Mitchie Hoyer moves up to 4th place. It's Race Clutch and rFactor team who are dominating the top 4 at the moment.
Interesting with the teams and how it's been, you can see certain teams are fast today. Yeah. So maybe this is a bit of a setup track potentially. Maybe what something was mentioning earlier with the way it is with the curbs. Potentially, you have to get in a bit of a rhythm around here. It definitely seems like there's some sort of correlation with that at least.
Yeah, exactly. The top 8 are covered by a very small amount of teams actually at the moment. Both Brabham eSports cars join the rFactor eSports and Race Clutch cars inside the top 8. But I'll excuse the other 2 teammates. Patrick Sevett's teammate Matthias Dare had an issue earlier on at Piratella with that spin, of course, but he did have the speed earlier, that's for sure. And Jan Grankvist's teammate is a reserve driver, and so you can never expect a whole load from that, unfortunately. But for some of the other teams, it's been a real struggle. Scuderia Ferrari eSports team, I think, Cam, have been a little bit disappointing so far this season. They're 5th currently in the team's standings. Isaac Hillerson now taking over from Alex Siebel, who hasn't finished a race since his home Grand Prix at the German Grand Prix at the end of March. It's been quite a while since we've seen him on top form, unfortunately. It's been quite a while, I would argue, since we've seen Dennis Jordan on top form, although he has got to the end of every race at least, and has scored points in every race as well. But it's just not the Dennis Jordan that we've seen in previous years. He generally has been, throughout his FSR career, been improving his championship position by the end of the season, although he has never won a title. He's not going to improve his best championship position this season, I wouldn't have thought.
No, and being my team boss of Evo, I can tell you he's practicing. It's not like he's not trying. So I don't know what it is to be honest, but it's a tough championship nowadays. It really is a tough championship. Yannick Bock, championship leader as well, sticking it down in P12 in qualifying. You just miss a few tenths here and there for whatever reason at a certain track, and you're going down. So yeah, it's a tough place, the FSR World Championship, and it has no room for prisoners at all. And it's a weird one, especially Dennis had so much involvement over the seasons. Michi Hoyer gets past Jake Dennehan.
Wow.
He's had so much involvement over the season, but just struggling a little bit. And then you get the likes of Michi Hoyer, who I can say from being a good friend of mine, he hasn't had the preparation they wanted this season, and he still had decent results. So it's funny how it works out.
Yeah, exactly. One of 3 drivers to have been in the top 10 every race so far this season. Owen McCorgie looks like he might continue that on. Yannick Bock might be a little bit worried about that record at the moment. He's down in 13th. And as I mentioned earlier, Michi Hoyer is the other one, having finished 9th a disproportionate amount of times. 3 times this season so far in 5 races, which is just odd. But that's the kind of thing that happens when you go racing, I suppose. He gets some very bizarre stats sometimes. He is on the podium, though, at the moment, and he hasn't been there for quite some time. It's, as I say, been 5 races inside the top 5, but never on the podium for Michi Hoyer in the 2024 World Championship. It's been a very long time, as I say, since he was there. He last won in 2022 at the US Grand Prix, and that's the last time he stood on the podium at all. Maybe he can break that today and finally get back to it, because the Rafa team are looking very good at the moment, I've got to say. Simoncic is beginning to bring that lead gap down as well.
Yeah, I've seen some moves further back. So Bock's got ahead of Bianchi Lilla. Jordan's got ahead of Matt Williams as well. So some moves are starting to be made. Hoy obviously got Dennehan not too long ago. So we are starting to see the strategies work out which one potentially is faster at certain points. Someone who's moved up quite quietly as well is Grankvist. He was down P11 or so at one point. He's up into P7. And realistically, he's only 5 seconds off Dennehan, who's only another 5 seconds off the lead. So Grank is still in a pretty strong position too.
Yeah, he's doing okay, and he's had a really good season, I think, so far. Jan Grankvist, very much a top 5 on the cards for the Finnish driver here this season.
Have you seen what he's doing elsewhere?
No, I haven't.
He's leading Super League, which, to be fair, there's a few reasons for this, because certain drivers not showing up, blah blah blah, having crashes. But he's leading that by about 50 points as well. So he's having a strong season in general in sim racing. He's on good form. Oh,
fair enough. Well done to him. It's difficult to follow all of what these guys are doing, to be honest with you. It's impossible to keep up with. Anyway, he's on the cards for a top 5, I would say, in FSR this season. But we'll wait and see where he's going with that as we go in towards turn number 1. Dennehan's right there. He has been overtaken in the last couple of moments by these 2 teammates, but he's right there, and I think the stronger drivers are being separated from the not so strong ones at the moment, because Patrick Sevet has been absolutely fired out the back of this group like a cannon, and Jonas Braksuk has plummeted like a stone as well. So I'm afraid to say that Sevet and Braksuk don't have it here today. It's going to be about the top 4 and indeed the top 2 teams, which are very much showing themselves to be by far and away better than the rest at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely Rafa and Race Clutch, the two R's at the front, and I think Sevet's obviously got speed because he's only 6 seconds off, but I think he was being pulled along on the back of that train ever so slightly. Braksuk pitting earlier, I mean, you could have read that from a mile away, dropped down. He did the exact same at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago. does the undercut, gets the lead, holds people up a little bit, and then drops down. So not the ideal strategy that he could be doing. Probably could have chosen the hard tyres in this stint, had a little bit more consistency. But let's see how this one works. We're over halfway into the race now, and we're starting to see who is really going, and they are closing down a bit on McGorgy. They've come down about a second and a half already.
Yeah, it's a very interesting group, I've got to say. And even more interesting, I think, is the fact that that gap came down for a bit, and McGorgy's been able to flatten that off now. The two pretty much matched each other last time round, just 21 thousandths separated Simičić and McGorgy that time round. It's very, very interesting indeed. Dennis Jordan is 9th, and he is starting to make some good progress here. Maybe he's starting to show a little bit of the Dennis Jordan that we're looking forward to seeing. 4th place is his best current result. That came on home soil at the German Grand Prix. I don't know if he's quite going to be able to repeat that here, but he's seemingly making use of this soft tyre stint and making some progress, and Martin Mergli might well be next.
Yeah, I think Mergli is going to be overtaken in the not too distant future. 2 steps softer tyres Dennis Jordan has got, but to be honest, tyres don't mean a whole lot, it seems, in this championship. If you can make the softer tyres last, they seem to work. You know, I guess at the end of the day, they are just faster, and the issue is they wear off too much. So if you have a bit of control of that, then you'll have them obviously faster for longer. We're getting closer to that 2/3 mark as well, where people on 2 stops will be thinking of making their second round of stops, and therefore obviously going to the end is a bit early now, because you definitely have to go on the hards at this point. So for those who want the softs, it needs to be a bit longer in the race, but definitely fun times as they try and work it out, as Dennehan once again gets close to Hoyer in that first chicane, just not overtaking just yet.
Nope, can't quite do it for the moment, and you wonder again whether he is just sitting there, staying there for the moment, and not trying to go through. Well, this is getting all very close again, and well, just as I say, he's sticking behind and staying back. He begins to move forward, or tries to. Jake Dennehan having a look at Michi Hoyer on the way towards Toza. Through Piratella they go now at turn 9, and all of a sudden Patrick Sever's back with them all over again. Not particularly because I think the speed's gone out of this group, but he is back here again all of a sudden with some good lap times. So it's maybe 5 for the lead, but these final pit stops are going to be so crucial as to who gets the undercut, but also not pitting too early, otherwise you won't make it to the end.
Could Sever sneak a podium somehow? Could he do something to get Go Team their first podium in the World Championship in just their 6th race? That would be quite something. And you're right, I thought he was just holding up, being pulled along, I should say, by the DRS in that first stint. He dropped off the back, but he's now caught up once more, so that might be a sign of some actual speed, as once again Dennehan not able to do too much. The gap is also stable to McGorgy at the front, so I think they're just at that point of the stint where they're just keeping the tyres going for as long as possible, waiting to see what they want to do in terms of strategy coming to the end. 25 laps to go at the end of this one, and that is at a point where you could take some hards, but do you not want to wait a little bit longer than have fresher tyres at the end?
Well, it's going to be a big conundrum to solve for everybody here, with 25 laps remaining in the race when we get to the line next. There's the next group on the road. Braxtock is getting alarmingly close to it as well. Jan Grankvist very much catching him right now, and not far behind Grankvist, Martin Mergli's there. He's been caught by Dennis Jordan. Matthew Williams is inside the top 10 now, not too far away in this group. Sander Callis is there as well, so it is a bit of a group in the midfield here as well, as it turns out, as they all try and catch Jonas Braxtock. He just seemed to be struggling in the middle stint, as he does do on occasion. But unfortunately, doesn't look like today either is going to be the day when he takes a race win. There you go. Into the pit lane for Michi Hoyer, who's decided to blink first. I said the undercut was going to be important, and now McGorgy's in a very unenviable position as to how he responds to this. And
this, I assume, mediums again? Although the graphic updated, I was going to say that's got to be the hard tyres for Michi, surely. It is yellow, but the graphics took a while to update from last time. That's a very interesting one if he has done that to pit first, because I wouldn't be surprised if someone takes hards pitting after him. He's behind Isaac Hillison there, and he is a little bit away behind Bok and Biancalia. So don't forget, Bok and Biancalia in 12th and 13th. I'm pretty sure they're on a one-stop strategy with how long they went on the mediums. So Hoyer needs to catch down 10 seconds from to them. So don't discount that little group in the middle of the field, as is going to get closer and closer. And at the front as well, Simičić has decided he's bolting. He's left Denahan, and he's getting closer. It's now under 4 seconds to Magorgi.
Oh, you just wonder what he's been holding back here, Jurnej Simičić, because I thought he was very much, well, not on the limit quite, but he was towards it. But no, he's absolutely pushing, and that's why he was making a pit stop just at the right moment. And Jurnej Simičić will then be able to give us a bit of a reference. So will Patrick Sevet as he comes into the pit lane at the end of lap 39. Still 24 laps to go at the end of this one here. Might well be at mediums as well for these guys, but the problem is going to be traffic again. Isaac Hillison is right in front of Michi Hoyer at the moment, and that can't be helping. As Simičić goes on to the hard compound tyres as far as that goes. Oh, and Braxock has got an awkward entry to pit lane as a result. Sevet also exits pit lane. Medium tyres for him though. Interesting mix as they go out onto the circuit again. Hoyer's ahead of his teammate. Michi Hoyer's ahead of Jurnej Simičić and should be second.
Yeah, big moves there for Michi Hoyer. This is a very interesting one because Simičić realistically is kind of out of the championship fight. I mean, unless he goes to win this race. So it's not like Hoyer needs to give him the place for the championship at this point. They just need to go and chase down Magorgi. And the fact that Hoyer is, is now leading, he's going to be chasing up. They might get a bit of an undercut, I tell you, on Magorgi. If Magorgi doesn't come in this lap, if he goes one more lap, then he might be under threat. And he does come in, but I think this is going to be a bit closer than he would have expected.
It could well be very close here. But how quickly have they been going on these in-laps? Both race cars are in now. Jan Krankvist also goes in. So Martin Mergley continues on. He'll be leading this race ahead of Matthew Williams. Sander Callas will be in third position. Ruben Mercedes will go around as well by looking. No, he comes into the pit lane with Yannick Bock and Manuel Biancalula next up. They will get ahead of Magorgi, quite crucially, in this race. If they're going to the end, then it will have to be overtaking for the championship leader. There goes Owen Magorgi. There are the Rafa cars with the other race car, Jake Denahan, nowhere to be seen. Patrick Sevet might even get him here for what should be fourth place. Oh, it's close, but he can't quite do it. So Denahan stays ahead of him, but the two Rafa cars are a lot closer. It's just over 2 seconds between Magorgi and Michi Hoyer now for what might well be the race-winning battle.
Yeah, I think if this is correct, the Hoyer's on the medium. I'm not sure how that's going to work by the time we get to the end of the race. I think it might have been stronger for him to choose the hard tyres, because then he is on the same for everyone and he can just push. Interesting one with how that how that is working out. Let's see how it is going to progress over the course of the next 22 laps. Hoyer will have some pace now at least to maybe try and pull along his teammates to try and catch down Magorgi.
Well, this is going to be another nail-biter. It's been the same again and again in the Formula SimRacing World Championship this season. And once again, he is in with a chance, or we are in with a chance here, I should say, of seeing a fantastic finale. Sander Callas is off. Oh, no, it's Sargianis. Goodness me. Thought it was Callas. There goes his teammate through. And panic is over for the ground effect cars. And team members and so on, as it's not Sander Callas who's currently in the podium positions. Now, I do wonder about these guys. How many of them are still yet to pit? I mean, there are still 21 laps to go, I suppose. There's plenty of time. But even so, this is a long middle stint for some of these drivers who also had some quite long first stints.
Yeah, they're going to be fast at the end. The longer they go, the realistic opportunity of getting potential onto the soft at the end. And they're going to be coming out somewhere around, the Dennis Jordan battle for P13. There's quite a big gap behind. So it'll be in between Jordan and Macheda, approximately. So they could be quite fast at the end. And then, of course, Bock and Biancalilla. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they might be trying to go to the end because they did get to about lap 27, 28 on the mediums. So then 35 on the hards. There is a realistic opportunity to try and make that work, but they are going to be going long. But remember as well, they were around P10 when in the first stint. So if they're anything above P10 by the end of the race, then that is a net gain.
Yes, I guess in theory it is, yes. So he'll be wanting to get everything he can out of it, but whether he's going to get a win or not remains to be seen. What's the lap time like for McGorgy? Fastest of anybody, 1:19.2, and that's 7 tenths quicker than Michi Hoyer. Now the question I suppose is going to be, is that because Michi Hoyer is leading the group, or does Joni Simoncic have an answer for that? And if so, he needs to get in front of his teammate very quickly.
I agree on that one. They need to work out who is realistically going to be the one, not only to potentially catch McGorgy, but to make sure that both cars stay ahead of Denahan and Sever in behind. McGorgy might be a little bit too far for the race win, as it's working out, but they need to make sure that they are P2 and 3. They can't be letting Denahan get ahead. That's also for the team's championship side of things as well. They do need to think about Bock and Biancalilla, but you would expect over 20 seconds they can chase down that 7 seconds that they've got. But either way, they just need to find what is going to be the fastest way for the team to get to the end.
Yeah, and there won't be any championship team games going on, I would have thought, because remarkably, only 9 points between the two at the moment. Michi Hoyer behind, even though he has finished 2 more races. Merkley and Williams both make their way into the pit lane then, leaving just 3 needing a pit stop today, or, well, waiting to make their second one. Whether they do or not is another question. Meanwhile, down towards Tamburello for the leaders. Denahan looks close for a moment there, but Simoncic stays ahead and he stays behind his teammate, which is doubly interesting as they lose a bit more time to Owen McGorgy. Another half second, in fact, lost on that lap.
Oof, yes. It is I think this is a potential turning point in the race, these next 5 laps, with how it's going to look coming towards the end of the race. And this is now going to be the time where the drivers are hopefully just putting in some solid laps for themselves, trying to make this work. And it is certainly getting very, very tight with these strategies sort of working themselves together as we hit the final stint.
It's Xander Callas still leading. 5.5 seconds is gap to Yannick Bock and Manuel Biancalilla, although we're pretty sure Xander Callas will have to come in again. Unfortunately, his teammate George Argianis has become the 3rd retirement of the day after crashing at Tamburello, I'm afraid. So they're down to just 1, but it is leading the race for ground effects. Yannick Bock and Manuel Biancalilla next, ahead of Owen McGorgy, who's now right into view. Surely it won't be that long until he's getting the DRS off of these two, and then we're going to see just how quickly and easily he can make his way through.
Yeah, I reckon same tyres, but a fair bit newer. So I reckon he'll be able to get past with relative comfort. It just depends how how much Biancalilla wants to get involved and try and attack Bock at the same time. Because they also want to think about the cars coming behind, because Hoyer has another 5 seconds or so. The longer they can hold off that gap, the longer they can wait to have the battle with Hoyer, then the better it is, the better the chances are for these guys to stay inside that top 5 by the time we get to the end of it. Although realistically, we've got the top 4 and even 7 involved, the top 5, so it might be a P6, P7 for these two by the end of the race. And of course, we've got Callas still out there. Need to have a look at what his potential strategy might be.
Yeah, we certainly do. See, he's still leading the race. We can't forget about him. But before the end, through rFactor for these two. The current championship leader, who looks like he's going to take a bit of a hit in points today, to Owen McGorgy. Will he lose all of his lead? If McGorgy wins, then he needs to finish in 12th place to retain the championship lead on a number of second places, because it would be a tie if McGorgy wins and Bock finishes 12th. I do think, though, that Bock's actually made a pretty good use of a pretty bad hand today, in that he didn't qualify well. There's not a lot that he can do from that situation, and he has made quite a lot of a bad starting position here.
Oh, definitely. This is the best strategy for him, assuming the hards don't completely fall off, and then he's under attack from the likes of Brackshock potentially by the end of this race, assuming the 5 in behind get past. So that's the bit that he needs to stop, because then there's also Grankfist not too far behind his good pal Dennis Jordan as well. So that's the bit he needs to be careful of. We've also got Martin Mergley. He's dropped down quite a bit, hasn't he? He was looking very good at one point. I was saying good things about him, but maybe not so more. As McGorgy now, he will be in DRS, and you're going to assume he's going to try and get past on the first time of asking.
Yeah, he's been wiping the floor with that second group behind, by the way, and I'm not entirely sure where he's found all this speed from compared to where he was suffering a bit towards the end of the middle stint in this race. Well, they both stay out, of course. It's about to be for the race lead because Sander Callas comes in, allowing Owen McGorgy to now go for the lead. He's going to get past Manuel Biancalilla first, and he's going to have to do it one by one here. He's not going to get past them both in one go, which would have been a bit over-ambitious, I suppose. So Yannick Bock leads the race, but Owen McGorgy is on his way, and he is now in second place.
Certainly is. Where Callas is only in the pit box now. He's going to be quite a bit further down, unfortunately, than I was expecting. Thought he'd be a bit higher than this. He's going to have Ruben Macheda just come past him as well, and then he's going to be down in that P14. So still a couple of points there for the ground effect driver. Multiple time pole position winner in this series, but struggling a bit the last couple of seasons since his return. As you go back to the front, McGorgy now is going to be sliding past Bock, you would imagine, with how close he's staying in this middle sector. He has that tyre wear, has that speed, and he's got 15 laps to make this overtake, and I don't think he's going to need more than one of them.
Nope, I wouldn't have thought so. 16 at the line, in fact. But yeah, it's far too many as far as Yannick Bock is concerned. He would very much like this race to end right now, because that would very much give him the result that he wanted, but it's not going to be, I wouldn't have thought. Oh, a bit of a slide for Owen McGorgy. Doesn't need to throw it away now as he makes his way onto the front straight. Just how hard is Bock going to really defend this one? I thought he was going to roll over, and he finally does now. He had good straight line speed to start off with, but Owen McGorgy flies now through, and he takes the lead of the San Marino Grand Prix on lap 48. Is that the final lead change of the day, with Owen McGorgy now out front and racing away already?
Yeah, it looks like the group behinds aren't going to catch him, are they, over the course of the stint? McGorgy is looking in a very, very strong position for another race victory to his name, with a couple of second places recently as well. I mean, he could be, he could have been leading potentially the championship. He unfortunately had that one bad race. I think it was around 2, wasn't it? But since then, he's been looking very, very strong and trying to put his name down on this championship coming into it for the first time. He's effectively a rookie with just a one reserve, I believe it was, at the end of last season, but still jumping in and looking very, very fast.
So how is this second group going to be sorted out? I think is going to be the main entertainment for the next few moments. How quickly are they going to catch those two up ahead? You would have thought they will, but how are they going to sort this all out? Because there's a lot of them. They'll all want these positions, and I'm not sure it's going to quite be as simple as that. So it's Mitja Hoyer still leading the group after getting the undercut on them all through that most recent and what we expect to be the final cycle of pit stops during this race. And, well, behind him is a whole group, and they're queuing up here. Sirincic, Denahan and Sevet would all like these positions. Denahan is looking very racy now as he gets onto the back of Yoni Simic. He even has a look, but his exit off of Tamburello wasn't quite good enough. He's looking threatening, though, in 6th position.
Yeah, this is a tough part because he needs to overtake these two drivers, obviously. So, but because they're teammates, it makes it very difficult. Because Simic has DRS, that makes it even more difficult. So he needs to do a bit of a send here on Simic to get past, and I think he won't have too many issues getting Hoyer. But that first one is the most difficult, as they've already been 10 laps into this stint, and he's just been sat there in that position of what is effectively 4th place from what it was earlier. But they now have the extra cars of Biancalilla and Bock to try and overtake, and that's what Hoyer is going to have in another. 3 seconds behind. He's catching about half a second or so a lap. So, maybe even up to a second a lap, actually. So, not going to be too many more laps before he's there.
Nope, I don't think so. Out through the rFactor they go now and over the line. Biancalilla not interested in fighting with Yannick Bock for the moment, which is understandable. They'd only cost each other time, but I wonder at what point that alliance shatters and they begin to wonder who can finish ahead of the other, because they're both championship contenders, of course. Manuel Biancalilla came in today 4th place after 2 weeks ago having his first outside of the top 5 performance, I'm afraid, finishing down in 13th position at the British Grand Prix, which is 8 lower than any other position that he's finished in before in the 2024 season, which is a shame for him, but he's going to be back to himself, I think, here this time round. These cars are not particularly catching them quickly, though. Hoyer did a 19.9 that time round. It was 8 tenths quicker, admittedly, but, you know, this gap's not coming down as quickly as it was when Owen McGorgy was the chaser.
Yeah, definitely. McGorgy's got the pace on them today. I think that's just what it is. We saw it in the first stint. He pulled away, and he's been able to cover the gap and even just increase it a bit since then. I think he's really, really looking strong. And this is ominous, actually, coming into the second half of the season, because even in box race wins he's had, he hasn't looked quite so dominant as the win, I should say, of McGorgy. So interesting times in the FSR World Championship as we work our way to the second half of the season. And is Jake Dennehan finally going to have a bit of a run, have a bit of a sniff down the inside of Simoncic? Oh. Even Simoncic with the slipstream, with the DRS, has to really defend here. Bit of a mistake there coming through turn 3.
Very big mistake, and look at this now on the way in towards Villeneuve. They're getting so close all over again, but Jake Dennehan just can't do it. He does like a little look into Tozer here, but he didn't get a good enough run through the right-hander to really have a go at it that time, but he is looking threatening here, and he would like this position. 3rd place in the championship coming into today. Talking earlier about those that need to gain points to stop this becoming a 2-horse race. Well, you've got to say that Jake Dennehan is certainly one of those. Starts the day 33 points behind Yannick Bock. He absolutely has to get ahead of him and start gaining some points back, and ideally stay ahead of Jurni Simoncic, who starts the day 13 points behind him.
Yeah, it's the maths is going to be very fun to work out over the next couple of races, and what we look like coming into the final few rounds. And yeah, definitely looking forward to that one. Jake Dennehan is staying close once more. DRS detection halfway between the two rFactor corners, easily within that, and he's going to be having another run here down this front straight. Surely he's going to have to send it a bit harder, a bit more aggressive than he would have wanted.
Well, he's not close enough, I wouldn't say. On the way down the front straight on this occasion. Still no DRS for Michi Hoyer as he tries to catch up to Manuel Biancaluna and Yannick Bock, who we can very much see now, but Simoncic held off Dennehan pretty easily that time round. 2.5 is the gap, and last time round it only came down by about 4 tenths of a second. We could still be a couple of laps away from a fight here, and it could be a difficult one for Hoyer to make his way through on those two drivers.
Yeah, with the lack of overspeed, that might just add a couple of laps. McGorgy was one and done both times. Yeah, Hoyer may be a little bit more difficult to do so, and I'm surprised. I guess it's because Dennehan's too fast, or too close. It doesn't make sense for Rafa to switch at the moment, because there's actually potential that they would both get overtaken in the process of doing that. So Simoncic is a bit stuck here, and he kind of needs Hoyer to get this over and done with, and then hope that they can both get through and Dennehan gets stuck behind it a little bit. I think that's their biggest thing to worry about over the next couple of laps, is to make sure that they're not held up and they don't let Dennehan get through on either of them.
Let's see what happens here between these guys as we've got 11 laps to go now. I think Bock could very much hang on to second place here. Don't forget that Biancaluna's got the DRS of him at the moment, and so that's going to make it all the more difficult for those behind to try and overtake. And they're working quite well together here. I think if Bock and Biancaluna have been at each other's throats all day and fighting each other all day, then they might already be off the podium places. But the fact that they've not been side by side, I don't think at all this race, has helped them both.
Yes, that's true. Can they do a bit of Carlando from Singapore? We'll have to find out, because I think Biancaluna is quick enough to overtake Bock. I think he's choosing to sit behind for the better of the pair of them. And as you say, if he sits in behind and just gets pulled along with DRS, it might be quite difficult for Hoyer, because Hoyer still isn't there, is he? We've been saying this for about 5 laps now, but he still isn't there. He's not in the DRS.
Yep, I know, yep. And I think that the rate at closing is becoming so small that it is going to be difficult to pass now. It's going to be like those trains that we saw in the first stint of the race, where the driver in front had DRS and he didn't stand a chance. My concern for Hoyer is that's exactly what he's about to experience here in the final 10 laps.
I think it is. I think you are right. But they are there now. Is it enough for DRS? He was on the limit. I think he might have just been within the 7 tenths. And is this actually a point where Biancaluna wants to say goodbye and wants to get past, or does he want to try and play the game and try and use the DRS. He's getting closer to Bok, as in the background as well. Denahan is also thinking of making a move. Biancalilla goes to the inside of turn 1. This is just losing them time. Don't lose your front wing there. And this is not helping their situation, but he doesn't want to be the first one to have Hoyer come up behind him.
That was so close to contact for the championship leader as Yannick Bok tried to just come down on Manuel Biancalilla and stop him from overtaking there. It very nearly had them both in the wall with damage, as Jake Denahan's also making a little bit of an impression here. Yanni Simoncic has not quite been up to it on this final stint of the race, which is especially peculiar considering his middle stint where he looked like he could even catch Owen McGorgy at one stage, but he did not. Now all of a sudden he's battling to stay in the top 5. Here goes Jake Denahan looking at the inside. Look at behind, by the way. Sevets here. Jan Granqvist and Jonas Braksuk are also back in the fold as well.
Yeah, this looks like the first stint all over again, does it not? This is crazy. All it took was 2 laps for them to sort of all bunch back up again. And now we have from 2nd place to 9th, all in a line trying to battle for their final positions, and it's basically a 10-lap sprint now. So you do all of the work, you do the 50-odd laps, you do your tyre strategies, and now this is it. You've got 10 laps to try and hold on to your position or make some moves.
Absolutely, and Yannick Bok is the one who has to hang on to every single overtake that he possibly can here. He weaves around to try and break the slipstream. Mitchy Hoyer's getting all of it though. He goes to the outside of Manuel Biancalilla, who breaks late and tries to hold him off. There's contact and through the gravel for Mitchy Hoyer, back onto the road again, just in front of his teammate. Yerny Simoncic goes through as well. Can he take Biancalilla into the Villeneuve chicane? No. Denahan tries to take Hoyer though. There's contact. Mitchy Hoyer goes around, searching for his first podium in a year and a half. He's not going to get it. He's down outside the top 10.
And now Patrick Severs through on Jake Denahan as well. You could see this coming. The pressure cooker was getting to the point of implosion, and it certainly did. So Hoyer tried to go around the outside of Biancalilla. Biancalilla needs to be careful because he's had a couple of penalties for squeezing people off. Of course, didn't really get the best angle of that. It was tight and just needs to be careful. Hoyer sending a big move around the outside. Try and get a replay of that shortly. But what that has left was then the open door for the likes of Simoncic and Denahan to get through. And then they tried to go around the outside. It was for Denahan, and a bit of contact was made furthermore. Don't think that one was his fault though, coming into Villeneuve. Certainly tight sequences now at the front.
So close indeed. And Manuel Biancalilla saw it coming. You saw it coming as well. Actually came. He said, well, you might want to get ahead of Bok here as soon as possible. So he's not the one first in the firing line. But of course, Bok's now wise to that. It's already been under pressure once, and so he's using a bit of energy now to stay away from Biancalilla. But it is going to be a little bit about who's got the energy left at the moment to deal with this. Only 8 laps to go though, and Yannick Bok all of a sudden will be feeling confident he can hang on to his championship lead here. Now let's see what happens in towards the first chicane here. Mitchy Hoyer moves to the outside line. Now, does he get the room from Biancalilla, or does he drive himself off the road? He's on the outside line. Biancalilla is holding his ground on the inside. He does come in flying in though, doesn't he? And Hoyer's already sliding, by the way, and that's going to be a difficult one to call there, although Biancalilla may well be the one in trouble for it. Simoncic just squeezes through, by the way, and his teammate. Then Jake Denahan comes through. Now, who sails into who here? Into the Villeneuve chicane? I would argue Denahan gave space there. He's lucky not to go around himself, actually.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jake left enough space. I think he's going to be okay with that. Biancalilla, though, was definitely coming deep into turn 2, so that it's not going to be a nice one. And I feel a bit bad for Hoyer. He was having such a good race once more, and now he's completely out of this battle. And even in the background of shot now, we got Denahan Mergely coming into it. Huge train here at the end of this Imola race. Who's going to get the top spot, sir?
Well, Yannick Bok defends again. Here goes Johnny Simoncic down the inside. No, he can't quite do it on the way in towards Tamburello that time round, as he just had a look to the inside. Time is very much against these guys. The advantage for these one-stoppers is the fact that they have got the track position. They've, in one of their cases anyway, got DRS as well. And this is the advantage. You might be absolutely finished in terms of tyres, and I think these two are, to be honest with you, but they've got track position, and that's very difficult to overcome. Here goes Johnny Simoncic. Is he going to have a move at Piratella? Not quite. He'll follow through. We'll probably wait for the front straight again.
If Biancalilla holds up Johnny Simoncic, then I think Bok has this P2. If Simoncic gets through, I think he'll be able to get both of them. So a lot of this race now depends on Biancalilla. And you can see he's trying. He's trying to get closer to Bock. And I think over the last 10 laps, he has been faster, but he's just had to sit in behind for the better of them. But now it doesn't really matter, because if he can get through, then it's not really his problem where Bock ends up. And it is getting tight. It really is a tough situation. And look how close he can stay in the final 2 corners. I think, though, Bock is maybe just trying to save for the straights.
I think so. I think he's looking pretty unpassable at the moment, I've got to say, Yannick Bock. But let's find out on the way towards turn 1. Oh, goodness, there goes Simicic, speeding around the outside and almost no room there. He's got on the inside of Biancaluna and goes around. The reigning champion goes around along with one of this year's protagonists. He's back onto the road, straight into Dennis Jordan. Manuel Biancialuna's got no front wing. Jurnej Simicic has just seen possibly his championship charge for the season go. And Dennis Jordan's best drive of the season to date has also resulted in a front wing loss as well. What a mess towards the end of this race.
Dennis Jordan just can't get a break this season, can he? The rejoin there from Simicic. Dennis Jordan having nowhere to go. And now what this has left, so we have Patrick Sever, Go Team Racing, up in 3rd place. We've got Jake Dennehan chasing him down. Now Yannick Bock is going to be under huge pressure. He doesn't have his teammate, or his strategy mate, I should say, of Biancaluna in behind him, helping him out. And Bock is already sliding on the rear. This is an opportunity for Sever to get up into 2nd place in a World Championship race. McGorgy is just loving it out the front. He's completely oblivious of all that's happening in behind.
Absolutely unbelievable race so far. Patrick Sever has only been to one of the races so far. He scored an 11th place finish. Right now, he might be looking at a podium. There he's looking behind him at the moment at Jake Dennehan, who's probably looking to try to come through at the moment. Yannick Bock is really on the ropes now, trying to defend on some very old tyres. And here goes Patrick Sever for 2nd. Can you believe it? Go Team Racing on the podium with Patrick Sever, who's only making his 2nd appearance of 2024. Jake Dennehan slides all over the place out of Tamburello. He's up the inside into Villeneuve with the championship leader, and he takes him for 3rd place as well. Fantastic overtake from Jake Dennehan, who moves into 3rd position of the San Marino Grand Prix, gaining crucial points over the championship leader, who's broken down but not out in 2024.
With all the carnage in behind, though, I think Yannick is probably fairly safe for this P5. Bradshaw is obviously coming for him, but the gap has opened up behind, and I think he was taking the smart decision there. He didn't really fight either Sever or Dennehan. He tried his best, but he didn't just risk it all, because P4 is still a solid place for him. As huge slide there from Bradshaw. He's starting to struggle on his tyres, but the intensity of this race is quite something. So we've seen Jordan, Simicic, Biancaluna all come out on soft tyres down in P14, 15, 16, so still a couple of points up for grabs, but definitely a championship over for all 3 of those.
Yeah, don't forget, it's Patrick Sever's 1st ever World Championship season and his 2nd ever race. And he could be on his way to a podium, would you believe it? Well, Michi Hoyer is looking to recover ever since his spin at the Villeneuve chicane. He's going straight past Sander Callis, who's gained loads of places as a result of everyone else's downfall here so far this afternoon. He's now down in 10th, though. Let's have a look at what on earth happened a few laps ago, because we barely have any time to breathe in these final few moments. This is Jurnej Simicic on his way back to the pit lane again. He is struggling. I'm sure we've seen the end of his championship charge this season here today. He dived up the outside. Not a lot of space out there. Now, are we seeing a similar situation to what we did with Hoyer here, where he wasn't given much room, or was Biancaluna just firm? Well, he gives just about a car width there, and then tries to, there's the problem, dives for the apex at the 2nd part, and that's where the contact is.
Yes, and then that's when they go around. Then here's Dennis Jordan, just got caught up in that. Unfortunately, nothing much more that he could do, I would assume. Let's see this from his onboard. Absolute carnage. He tries to go through the middle, but I mean, he can't just disappear. He can't just stop on the road and disappear. So very, very unlucky there. And certainly Biancaluna in turn 1. Hard defence. We know it's tight. And 2 contacts with both the Rafa cars, ending in spins.
Oh dear. What a messy end to the race. And unfortunately, it's at the expense of a couple of championship contenders. Jurnej Simicic came into today 5th place. He might not even score any points as of right now. He's got 1 on the road provisionally, but having started the day already 46 points behind the championship leader, you've got to say this could be the end of the charge for the 4-time champion as he looked for history in 2024. Instead, it's Owen McGorgy who's stepped into the limelight, and look at this, another race win possibly on the cards, his second of the season should it happen, and he would decrease the championship margin to Yannick Bock by more than half. 19 points at the start of the day. As we run right now, it's just 9, with Jonas Brakshock not too far away from grabbing another couple of points himself.
Yeah, Brakshock is definitely struggling though on those tyres. Can he get on the power this time? Yes, he can. He's got 2 more laps to go as the sun is starting to get a bit lower in the skies here at Imola. And it has been a crazy race. Of course, we had some quieter moments, but that's because it all is in balance and it's waiting for this pressure cooker of the final 10 laps. He said it was a sprint race to the end, and it certainly has been that.
Well, penultimate lap of the race, Yannick Bock weaves around to try and take away from the DRS and the slipstream from Jonas Brakshock, who ends up staying behind and will be 5th for the moment. Brakshock currently 6th in the standings, by the way. This will be his 3rd best result of the season. It could be tied 2nd best if he overtakes and gets into 4th. He has already been on the podium in 2024. Here's Jake Dennehan. Can he take 2nd place away from Patrick Sevet, who I'm pretty sure is going to be just about pleased to be on the podium, never mind whether it's 2nd or 3rd.
Sevet was about a second and a half ahead of Dennehan not so long ago. I think he might be able to push past because he was so slow there coming off one of the corners. Let's see that Jake Dennehan, maybe it's just his tyres are gone. Jake Dennehan is getting the run. This is not the normal overtaking opportunity. Down the inside into Variante Alto. Yes, don't do that, Jake. The curbs are so big here. You can't go side by side. Wait for the DRS and have an easier pass.
It's going to be an easier pass down here into Ravazza, and he knows it. Patrick Sevet already staying to the right-hand side, doesn't want to be forced onto the opposite line for Ravazza. Jake Dennehan doesn't want to go through. Oh, big slide from Sevet on the way down the hill there as he tried to get the car turned in for those final 2 left-handers of the lap. Now he's weaving around. Now he's firing out the final corner, trying to get everything he can from this, but it's going to be so difficult to defend. I think Jake Dennehan's going to have his car ahead by the time they hit the brakes at Tamburello here. Onto the final lap they go, and surely it's going to be 2nd place to Jake Dennehan. He's already ahead, and he's through into 2nd position. It's going to be a race clutch 1-2 at the San Marino Grand Prix.
As Brakshock also gets through on Bock. And Bock needs to look out because actually Mergely and Williams are getting very close. Final lap time though, and this is a big moment for this championship. McGorgy gaining extra points on Bock. That's going to be very close. Race clutch looking good. In the background, Williams is trying his hardest to get Mergely. These two had a bit of a ding-dong back at Hockenheim, remember? Which ultimately caused Mergely to get a race ban from that. So hopefully that doesn't come back in this final lap. But McGorgy has looked so strong. And to be honest, with just a few races to go after this one, he's coming for Bock for this championship.
He absolutely is. It may not just be a 2-horse race, he may have his teammate to back him up. As things stand, Jake Dennehan will only be 24 points away from the championship lead, but a lot closer than that. Owen McGorgy will be right there, fighting all the way home in the Formula SimRacing World Championship for 2024. He takes his 2nd win of the season at the San Marino Grand Prix. A pretty dominant display from the British driver, who takes his 1st win since the middle of March. It's going to be Yannick Bock in 5th place, is it? Just ahead of Martin Merkley. This could be pretty crucial as he comes over the line. He's down but not out in this championship. He'll be wounded slightly in the championship points as a result of today, as his lead comes down to just 6 points, but not as wounded by the looks of things as Mitchy Hoyer, who comes over the line 10th place without most of his car, as it turns out. It was an exciting end to this race, but not one we're expecting at all, not one we were hoping to see, as 4-time champion Jurnej Simicic's quest for history becomes almost impossible with still 4 rounds to go.
And Bianca Lilla as well, he was someone really going for this championship. He's good on the old strategies, but he just got stuck in a sticky situation. Had to do a couple of big defensive manoeuvres on the 2 Rafa cars, and both of them ended in contact. And certainly a tough old race out there. Valeriano and Mazardis will round out the finishers before we get some DNFs. But what can you say about McGorgy and his teammate Dennehan? The race clutch boys looking very strong.
Yep, Owen McGorgy now moves to 6 points behind Yannick Bock, with Jake Dennehan 24 points behind. at the end of the day. And as I say, it's becoming a three-horse race really now, with everybody else slipping away. McGorgy takes his second win of the season and his career here at the San Marino Grand Prix. Jake Dennehan finishes on the podium for the second race in a row. Finishes second for the second race in a row. And Patrick Sevitt finishes third. He scored more points today for Go Team Racing than the entire team did for the first half of the season. Jonas Braxok just misses out on a podium, but does get ahead of Yannick Bock to the end of that race, who retains his championship lead after a great one-stop strategy earned him some positions. Martin Mergley got two Brabham eSports cars in the top six, with Matthew Williams getting up to 7th place. Rob Timino with Sander Callis in 8th, and Ruben Machete and Michi Hoyer, who crossed the line without a front wing, in 10th place. 11th place was Jan Krankvist today, ahead of Adik Hillison, the better placed of the two Ferraris. Matthias Stair recovered to 13th after his spin at Piratella. Dennis Jordan and Joni Simitic round out the points-paying positions pending any post-race penalties. Manuel Biancaluna misses out, and his championship chances slip away today as well, really, with Giordano Valeriano, his teammate, still behind him in 17th. Stavros Mercedes finishes 18th, and then the retirements. Kostas Van Bukas, George Diagianis, Thomas Schmidt and Philip Puska, all who didn't complete the 63 laps here tonight. Well, there you have it. The San Marino Grand Prix. I don't want to say 63 laps of entertainment, but certainly quite a lot of laps of entertainment, and certainly towards the end as well. One driver, though, who wasn't involved in much of it was Owen McGorgy, and he joins us now for a quick chat post-race as well. Welcome in, Owen. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on your second win of the season. I mean, it was always going to be a difficult race. It's a difficult circuit, of course, as well, but the winning margin in the results sheet, it's going to look very comfortable when we look back on this in years to come. You winning in the end by 6.6 seconds as far as my numbers go, but it was getting nervy at one stage, or I was getting a little bit nervous. There was a stage in the middle stint where Jone Simitic was pulling down the margin a little bit. Were you ever worried at any stage that you weren't going to win today's race?
I don't think I was too worried. I knew the pace that I had was pretty good, especially from the first stint and the start of that second stint. I pulled the gap to Jone. Jone pulled it back a little bit, and I knew that he dumped a bit of the push to pass. And then I think the gap kind of stayed a little bit similar until the end of the stint when he pushed. And I wasn't expecting him to box that early, so followed him in on the next lap, and it felt pretty chill after that.
That's your second win in 7 World Championship appearances now. How are you feeling about the rest of the season with Yannick Bock's championship lead now a third of its previous size, although you are still second in the standings?
It's looking pretty good. I think the tracks coming up, I quite like them. Maybe not Kota, but the other three are, they're looking good. Hopefully I can, bring the fight to him and hopefully get ahead of him.
Yeah, Turkey's Grand Prix to come in 3 weeks' time, the first 2-week break of the season. So we look forward to seeing you there. And congratulations on a second race win of the season, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you.
That's Owen McGorgy and his teammate Jake Dennehan also joining us now as well. 1-2 for the team, first of all, Jake, which is a great result, but also a pretty important one for you to get back on track as well. After missing around at Singapore, which has hurt you a little bit in the points, it must be good to get 2 back-to-back podiums now on the board.
Yeah, I'm actually delighted. The plan really going into the race was to, once quali happened and no one got pole, I was already set on what I was supposed to do the race. I kind of just wanted Owen to pull away at the start and, basically guarantee a car on the podium at least. And to get a 1-2, it's even better.
Yeah, how are you viewing this rest of the championship between yourselves? Is it a 3-horse race now with all of the issues that we saw for Manuel Biancaluna and Jone Simitic, your 2 other closest rivals in the top 5, both crashing and scoring cumulatively 1 point between them today? How are you viewing this as a team now?
Yeah, I mean, the threat is still there on track. Jone and Yannick and Biancaluna, they're still really quick. It's just in the championship they're not as close, but they're still there on track, so it's still going to be a difficult fight with Yannick. And I don't know how close the championship is now, but it should be a good bit closer now.
It should be 24 points between the three of you, top to bottom, if my maths has gone correctly. But obviously, bear with that, might not be. So we'll find out. But yes, it should be a lot closer. So there we go. We look forward to seeing how the rest of it goes. Certainly, congratulations on the second again, Jake, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Jake Danahan. There, the second place finisher, ahead of Patrick Serrett, who finishes in third position for Go Team Racing. Congratulations, Patrick, and welcome to the broadcast booth. How are you feeling after that one? I mean, it was a chaotic finish, let's say, with lots of drama at the end, and Jake just got past you at the end there as well. But it was a race where you could have finished second, but you still finished on the podium. How are you feeling after that one? I'm not sure we can hear Patrick at the moment. I don't know whether he can hear us, to be honest with you. So that's not ideal, especially. But there we go. Hopefully we'll get him in a few moments' time for a bit of a chat about finishing in third place today. But just before we try and catch him again, with some final words from you, Cam, some final thoughts. I mean, as I said earlier, a race that didn't exactly ooze excitement for all 63 laps, but it certainly had an exciting finish.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how these World Championship races go sometimes. They all try different things, and then they come together, and then it's quite something. We'll see how it goes in the final four races. It's getting closer and closer between the top drivers. We're looking about 6 points between Bock and McGorgy at the top, not too far behind for Danahan as well. And with the amount of carnage that we've been seeing, I wouldn't be surprised if those things get spun around.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very, very interesting finale to the season, and only 4 races now to go. As I said earlier, the only fortnight off, actually, in the first part of this season. It's been 1 week off for the season so far for the first 6 rounds, but a couple of weeks away before we return at Turkey. The first weekend in June will be round 7 of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship here this season, and then 1 more week off until we get to Spa for round 8. So I hope that you'll join us for those 2 coming up in the future. They should be fantastic races indeed in what's becoming a fantastic World Championship for the 2024 season. Yannick Bock, still the championship leader, has seen his lead slashed to both Owen McGorgy, who wins today, and Jake Danahan, who finished second, but he's not out of this World Championship fight by any means, as the 3 of them look to take their maiden World Championship in 2024. Big drama for Yanni Simitic today. He won't be adding another world title to his list this season. You wouldn't have thought. He's over 50 points behind now in the World Championship stakes, and actually needs to make sure next time round that he doesn't come out of mathematical contention with 3 rounds still to go. But make sure you come and join us for all of that drama coming up at the Turkish Grand Prix in 3 weeks' time. We'll have Academy Pro and then World Championship racing going on all throughout the afternoon in the first Sunday of June. Hopefully you will join us then. For now, though, we'll bid you farewell. I've been Ewan O'Leary. Cam Rodger's been alongside me for this round of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. And until we see you for the Turkish Grand Prix in 3 weeks' time, it's goodbye for now.
Hello, I'm Jack Nichols and welcome to Highlights.
Who's going to break Lasix world title?
But my Gosby! Oh, he's done it! And
Look at these 2 go.
oh, he's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.